happy, beautiful day. Now, today I am going to be interviewing Andrea McLean. Andrea McLean is a TV presenter, best-selling author, and now a coach. And you're going to find out how Andrea decided to move away from an illustrious career in television to follow her passion. Andrea McLean is on fire, and you're about to find out why.
So there's three of us in this podcast today. Last time we did a podcast, it was just you and me. And now we have your bodyguard and your mentor.
He is. Everything I've learned in life, I've learned from that dog.
Yeah.
I know, because he's maybe 3 in human years. He's 21. He's a wise young man.
He most definitely is. I always think it's a good idea to be the person that your dog thinks you are. What do you think your dog thinks about you?
Look at that face. I mean, that's amazing. Teddy sits with me all day, every day. And because I work from home, and now we've moved house, it's the last time you pop round to interview me. Nick and I now have our own offices. So he chooses his time where he'll either sit with me or sit with him. But when I do most of my writing and my creative work, which means I like to get really into flow, I sit still for a really long time. So I actually do most of my writing right where you're sitting, just on the sofa. And I put a blanket over me, I have my laptop on. He sits on my legs, literally sits across my legs for hours and hours and hours on end. And at night time, he sits on me as well. So yeah, wherever I go, he's there. I can't get rid of it, can I? No.
So a lot has happened since we last met. And I think for anyone who doesn't know who you are, first of all, I'd say it might be a good idea to go and listen to the first podcast if you want to. But why don't you just tell us, if someone says to you, who are you now and what do you do? What do you say now?
That's such a good question, because for a while I used to go, well, and I never knew what to say, because originally I was just that lady off the telly. And because I worked for ITV for 23 years, I was the longest serving host of Loose Women for 13 years. That was my identity. That was who I was. And then I quit and left to work in a whole different space. And for a while, when people said, so, oh, hi, what do you do? I genuinely didn't know what to say. Now I say, I'm a coach who helps midlife women feel great about themselves. That's literally all I do.
And you're also an author as well, the author of 4 books.
Strategically placed books, which just happen to be sitting in my living room.
It's fascinating when you say about identity, because like you said, to me, because I've known you for a long time, I know you as Andrea, first and foremost, friend, but I could understand how people would see you as always that woman on the telly. But even when you were that woman on the telly, you're so much more than just someone who presents on telly, right? Because you have a lot of interest, a lot of passion, a lot of... And before you were on telly, what did you do?
Anything that people would pay me for, practically. I did all sorts of things. And I think, again, because I didn't plan to get into telly, it actually meant I had a lot more of a varied work life compared to someone who that's been their goal since I was 7. So I always wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a writer since I was a child, literally about 9 or 10. And it started with writing stories for my little sister. And because we grew up in third world countries, you couldn't get a lot of books, so I just used to write stuff for her. And in between that, I suppose, I went to journalism school, I worked in shops, I worked in bars, I was a travel writer, I packed around the world before mobile phones and before internet, which nowadays, I don't think anyone can understand how you are truly alone. You know, this idea now that you are never alone, because you can just text someone and say where you are, or they can look you up on Find My Phone or Find My Friend. And, you know, I literally left a stack of addresses with my parents for post offices in India and Sydney and Singapore and all sorts of places, and just would turn up and ask for the box starting with M for McLean and hope they'd written me a letter.
Yeah.
So I've done all sorts.
It is amazing just how much the world has changed. But in terms of the work that you did, there must be so many people that would love to have been in the position that you were in, yet you decided to walk away from them. I'd love to just dive into that. But just give us an overview of all of those years on television. Who were the people that you interacted with, that you interviewed. I mean, there have been some incredible.
Yeah. Well, you. Because that's how we met, was all those years ago on Breakfast Telly.
Yeah.
We were both so young. I was the weather girl and you were the life coach.
Yeah.
And you were helping millions of people with so many different transformations that they wanted to make. And way back then, it was always something that I was interested in. So, I was in my 20s back then. But we really clicked, and we ended up working together on literally a series called Life Coach, where we drove around the country in a coach. And you did these amazing things, and my job was to interview about it and put people at ease and this sort of thing. So you were one of the first.
But it is Oprah. I mean, you interviewed Oprah. Right?
Isn't it nice I put you before Oprah?
Yeah, and Oprah to me was she was a massive game changer. My friends used to think I was weird because I'd watched the Oprah Winfrey show in the 90s, and I just thought what this woman was doing in terms of the work that we do today, she was one of those pioneers.
Yeah, she normalized it.
Normalized what? Like personal development and spirituality and...
all of it, and also self-belief.
Yeah.
And I think what Oprah did as well was she took something which was incredibly niche at the time. Now it seems so mainstream in America particularly, but she normalized it. And again, if you've read any of her books and listened to any of her podcasts, whatever, she's had her own journey to get to that point. But what's so amazing about what she's done is she's now put it into global consciousness, this idea that actually I am capable of a lot more than maybe the limitations I put on myself or the limitations other people put on me because of my race, my gender, my place of birth, geographically where I happen to be born. Actually, other things are possible if we just believe enough in ourselves and put the work in. And I have been really lucky that I was born feeling that way. It got knocked out of me quite a few times by life's bumps and bruises, but it's always been in me. So what I do
what's always been in you?
A self-belief that if you really want to do something, you will find a way to do it. And it's not this kind of Pollyanna cheerfulness that, click my heels together 3 times and, I'll be in Kansas and it'll all be fine. No, if you have a dream or a goal or something that you really feel strongly about, you will find a path to it. And if you don't see the path, you will find someone you can ask directions and you will find your way there.
It's interesting, the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy, because obviously she always had the power to go home. I mean, it's a great story that she had to go to the Emerald City for someone to realize that he was a fraud, and she had the power to go home the whole time.
Yeah.
So just with people like Oprah, and present, I mean, look, there's so many people today in the culture that we're in would love to do what you did, right? Which was to be on television, to be recognized, the lights, cameras, action, live television, interviewing people. What was that like at the time?
Well, first of all, I'm really sorry. I realized I didn't answer your question, which was how many great people. So I start off with you, and then I went on to Oprah. And what was it like? Oh gosh, it's amazing. It's brilliant. Working in television is the best job in the whole world if you don't need it. Because if you can treat it with this lightness of touch, as in, oh my gosh, I'm playing in this fabulous, house of cards and sweeties and everything else. But if you're relying on it to pay your bills and the stress of, are you going to be hired, after your season has ended or what have you, then it's incredibly stressful. The job itself, best job in the world, because absolutely you turn up and you are part of this amazing creative process where you're putting stuff out there for people to enjoy. What's not to love with that? And then also, as someone who, works for herself, the brilliant thing with doing a daily TV show was for me as an anchor, once it was done, it was done. I could go home, and if I'd messed up, and it's okay, because tomorrow there is another show that I need to focus on. And so I learned quite quickly that you can beat yourself up for a little while, but then you have to literally do a memory swipe and move on to the next thing. But I think what I love most about it was, although in theory every day was the same, because obviously it's the same program, it's the same team, it was also the same crew. I worked with the same crew from when I was about 27 right the way through to my 50s. I was in the same studio, even though I'd changed jobs. Every day was different because you had a different guest. You could sometimes have a Hollywood A-lister, like someone like Oprah or Michael Bublé or Amy Schumer or Goldie Hawn or Eva Longoria, all these amazing people. And sometimes they were even guest panelists, so they were sitting in with us in the meetings.
Yeah.
And sometimes you were interviewing them. Or other times you were interviewing just incredible, normal people who had done extraordinary things. And again, you'll know this from my GMTV days. Actually, they were my favorites because they're so fascinating. So my days were the same, but exciting and different.
So I told you this before we came here. We interviewed Ben Shepard, who obviously you work with on television, and he's very much like you in terms of his real interest in people and caring for people. And I always observe when you're on television, you seem to make it more about the people than about yourself, which I just think is a wonderful quality. But why did you decide to walk away?
Because that quality that you mentioned is something that comes really naturally to me, and I couldn't do it in the way that I wanted because I'm working for a bigger organization. So clearly your job is to fulfill a role that they're paying you for. It's not a role that you necessarily want to do. So, for example, if you were interviewing someone who's hugely fascinating, whether they're a Hollywood star or like say someone who's had an incredible life event, you have 8 minutes to really get to the heart of them, of their story. And so you have beginning, middle, and resolution in 8 minutes. And it's just impossible. You can't do it. And then also the agenda is different because it was a different kind of show. It was a panel show. There are lots of different people involved. To the best of my ability, I tried to do what I do now on every show that I've worked on. And that is to, one, really reassure the guest that they are in a safe pair of hands, which is not necessarily the best interview technique on every kind of TV show because not every TV show wants that kind of result. So for me, I would go and knock on their dressing room door and I would go and see them beforehand and I'd reassure them. And I would do the opposite of what most TV shows would tell you to do. And I'd say, is there anything you don't want me to ask you?
Yeah.
And sometimes they'd say, no, ask me anything. And if they said, actually, yes, my family are feeling this way about this, can you stay clear of it? And I would. Even though there'd be people in my ear shouting, ask this question, I'd ignore it because my job was to make sure that they're okay. Seeing that now, oh my God, I'm amazed I ended up employed for as long as I did because really I was doing it the wrong way round. But that's just who I am.
Oh, that.
But also for me, I felt that you're never looking at the bigger picture, which again I understand because it's such a fast turnover of guests, especially in the kind of shows that I've worked on, that you don't necessarily care whether someone is going to come back or not. You have 8 minutes to get what you can out of them.
Yeah.
But I did. I felt that I owed it to them to make it as supportive an experience as possible. Also, I've always deep down felt you get, how do I phrase this nicely? You get more with honey than you do with poo. So if you're supportive to someone, actually, they're doing a trust fall with you and they will lean into you and they will tell you more and open up to you if they know that they're in a safe place. If you're hammering someone in the face, their reaction is to pull back. But if you give them the chance to lean in, actually they'll tell you more. And I couldn't understand why people couldn't see that. So why I left was really I felt that this was something I wanted to do more and more and more of, to interview amazing people of all walks of life, particularly to do with human behavior, because going right back to us working on life coach is something that I'm really interested in. But I also think people's stories are so fascinating and you can learn so much by them. And I couldn't do it in 8 minutes. And I wanted more choice over who my guests were going to be. So I decided to start something that was built around my key interest, which is making people feel good. There's so much out there now. You know, I quit in the middle of the pandemic. the same as so many people did. I didn't even know I was part of this quitting revolution or great resignation or whatever. Yeah, I didn't.
Great resignation. It started.
I did. I'm so sorry. I didn't even.
It was new.
I was in the front with a flag going, don't know where we're going. But come on, who's with me? I just thought, you know what? If ever we've had a tap on the shoulder to say, you have one life. Are you doing what you really want? It was the pandemic.
How many people have said to you since that happened that said, I'm inspired by what you did? A lot of people must have said that to you. What is it about that? Do you think I find it massively inspiring. They're not just because you left TV. I do find that inspiring, but it was more that you just felt, I'm done. I've got something else to do, that you identified with and stepping into that. Why do you think other people are inspired by that?
Because it's so scary. It's really scary. And people think, oh, well, there's so many misconceptions about, one, what you get paid working in telly. Not everybody's Oprah. Not everybody is, the names that I could name that are on the shiny billboards. I was never at that level. So that's the first misconception, that, I must have had.
But all the doors that could open because you're in that, she's on telly, so the other things that you could have probably done or were doing, but you decided, I'm just walking away from all of that.
Yeah, and even the doors opening, that's a really great question, because there's an assumption there that because I'm the famous lady of telly, that every door magically opens and red carpets just roll out before me. And you'd be so interested to hear that actually it's the opposite. Because, well, one, on the day that I announced that I was leaving on TV, I had, obviously you do you make a financial plan in terms of how much money you have in the bank and how much savings and what's coming in and how long you can keep going for. Because I was freelance. As soon as you leave, the tap is turned off. That's it. There's no money. How long can we keep going for while we're, building the business? It'd been 2 years as a side hustle, but not really properly as a business. On the day I announced I was leaving, every one of the brands that had me lined up to do work for them dropped me. Every one of them dropped me because I wasn't going to be on TV anymore. So my financial safety net disappeared. Like that.
Wow.
So you go from thinking, okay, I think we're going to be all right for 6 to 8 months, to, holy crap, we've got about 2 months. How are we going to make this work?
But and you also, a lot of people thought you were crazy, right? Because they had an idea of who you were, and they didn't identify you with someone who was doing what you're doing now. So tell us what you're doing now. Because I've seen what you've done. So you talk about it.
I came to see you to talk about it. We've met many times and you've given me guidance over the years. So this is on you, Pete Cohen.
Well, I saw it firsthand. So I saw you launch This Girl Is on Fire. And I was involved with a few Zoom sessions. And then a year later, you did an event where all these people came. And I stayed there and I listened to what these people had to say and the impact that you've had on those people's lives. And it was a really, whoa, I had to kind of stand back and realize this is serious. You've really opened the door for a lot of people to find their own voice and find their own selves and believe in themselves. So tell us what's happened. Where did the idea for This Girl's on Fire come, and what have you created?
So This Girl Is on Fire first started as a simple online blog, and it was me just trying to find a way to help women in the most efficient way, because anyone who ever DMs me on Instagram or Facebook, I answer them back. It's me. I do my own social stuff, and I've done it for years. And I realized many women were asking me the same questions over and over again. So I thought, right, I'll start a blog, and then this makes it a lot easier. And then I was working in TV. I had access to amazing experts. So I'd say, could you write an article for me? And so it started like that. And then I realized actually I needed to make it more of a community feel and more specialized. So I wanted to actually interview experts on video, so that there were like masterclasses that people could watch, put podcasts together. But really, I wanted to bring together a safe online space where you could trust the information that you were given. There's no other agenda other than making you feel good, and here are some steps that you can take. And the only way I could do that was by going all in. And the reason that I could only do it by going all in, was because people had this mindset of, yeah, but you're that. You do this.
You are.
What are you doing this for? And so and I understood that. I really did. So
Why? Why? I mean, it's just a strange thing about human beings. If we put someone in a box and say, that's you.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's like a tennis player happens to be a really good plumber, you know. It turned out you'd be like, aren't you Andre Agassi? What are you doing under my sink? Who knows?
Good at plumbing.
Who knew? I don't know. But also for me, I felt that I already knew I was really good at being a TV host, but I wanted to be really good at taking everything that I spoke of before about making people feel comfortable and bringing them out of their shell and making the viewer who watches at home feel good. Put it in a space where actually people could just breathe out when they watched, because there's no, I'm here for you. You know, I remember when I used to work on Loose Women, I did this for years before ever telling anyone about it, and then it actually became part of their sort of remit. For me, so there were 4 women sitting on the desk, but for me there were always 5. And the 5th woman was down camera 1. And camera 1 was the one that was aimed at me. And for me, my job was like a conductor to make sure that every opinion was heard fairly and that the whole thing became a beautiful piece of music. But I would always make sure that I would look down camera 1, because I could see the woman sitting at home, and make sure she felt heard and seen. Yeah. So there was an opinion that this unseen woman could share. Now I just do that for my job. And so for me, when I do a Zoom event or I do an in-person event like I've done with you, and you've been, you know, people still talk about meeting you. They love you, and your videos they're, you know, on habits are still in our community. It's, for me, it's kind of selfish, really. It's just this beautiful feeling of knowing that the work that I do in researching and putting together workbooks or courses or what have you, when I get a message back saying, I hadn't thought about it like that, and I've changed, just made tiny changes, and my life is better, brilliant. That's what I do it for. That's really that simple. That's what it's all about.
So the whole thing that you said right at the beginning about identity, I'm so fascinated by that, because the word seems to mean who you think you are, and then your personality is played out through your identity, what you say yes to, and you've gone through that whole thing of, I'm not who I was, I'm someone different, and I've got something to say and I'm going to say it. What would you say has happened in the last couple of years since you've started This Girl Is on Fire? What is it? What is the whole concept, and what sort of transformations have you seen with people?
For me, the biggest transformations have been in the women who joined my community really early on, and they're still there. Obviously, with any community, you'll always get, you know, some transient people that sort of come and go. But for me, I'm so fond of these women, and you know, there's quite a few of them. But I feel so motherly towards them. So for me, the transformation has been sometimes. So I'm in touch with publishers and different people who have experts on their books and this sort of thing. And sometimes I'll contact them and say, I'm looking for this, or they'll contact me and say, got this new book coming out. Do you think that would help? Brilliant. I can visualize who it's for. They've now become my woman at home. Yeah. So they all have different personalities. Some are really high-flying businesswomen who actually have gone on to start their own sort of support group within their corporate world. Some are stay-at-home mums who have become severely agoraphobic because of the pandemic, and because of the work they've done with me, have either driven a car for the first time. One woman went to a school reunion that she never would have done before. That's amazing. Or one woman even flew for the first time in about 15 years because she was so afraid of flying. Again, you'll understand all of this. To know that what you've done and the tools that you've given them have made them able to literally spread their wings has been amazing. But for me, the transformations have come not just with the women, but with me.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning, I had as much imposter syndrome as they have in their normal.
In stepping into the space.
Yes, because, I knew I was really interested in it. I knew I could probably get good at it. But at the time, you always have to jump before you're ready. Because if you wait till you're ready, the bus is long gone, so you're like, I'm ready.
So we're not waiting for the rest of your life.
Exactly. So I jumped well before I was ready. And I for a long time, I felt like Wile E. Coyote putting the train tracks down in front of the train that was coming behind me, just kind of making it up as I went along. And I don't feel that anymore. Now I feel, I feel really at peace with what I do now. And that's been my biggest transformation, is that now if I, we recently moved, and so you get invited around the neighbour's house, and, what do you do? And, I run a community for women to do with personal growth, and I help women in midlife feel great about themselves. That's fascinating. What does that mean? Well, I run courses and seminars and this kind of thing and do coaching. Great. And nobody asked me about the telly. I might get the odd person sidle up to me and say, I know who you used to be. And so
A lot of people still think you probably are.
It's really funny. Some people just think they've just not seen me for a bit, and I left 2 years ago.
Yeah. I think in just looking back and seeing what you've done, and that this girl is on fire, it seems like you have definitely helped people feel their own fire, feel their own greatness, and in a community where it's almost like you don't have to be there because a lot of those people are supporting each other. That's an empowered community, right?
For me, people ask me, why did you launch an app? What's the point of an app? You can launch a community anyway. You can have it on Facebook. You can do it any which way. But for me, it was really important that we take this habit that we have of, I call it the Starbucks effect. So you're standing in Starbucks and you give your order, and what's the first thing you do is you reach in your back pocket and you pull your phone out and you just start scrolling. And 99.9% of the time, what you're scrolling is making you feel really bad about yourself. It's either Instagram pictures that none of us can ever live up to, and even though part of our brain knows it's filtered and it's lies, we still believe it. Or just horrible stuff on certain news websites that have a sidebar shame, and there's just awfulness. So for me, I wanted to take this habit that we already have, and you're a habit expert, so you appreciate this, that you will automatically click on the This Girl's on Fire icon instead of all the other icons. Click it on and see a community feed of people posting about their wins of the day, or what they're trying to do, or, oh my God, this one's so wrong, but actually it was all great. All supporting each other and having a bit of a laugh. Or there's a guide you can download and read in the time that it takes you to get your cup of coffee. That I wanted to take a habit that we have and use it for good.
Well, I saw what you did recently. I was looking at some of the stuff you were putting out, and I really thought, wow, this is good. When it's like you say, we're working with women that have got big,
bold, audacious,
audacious goals, and they're frightened.
Yeah, they're frightened.
Wow, that's a great. People call it a niche, but I mean, how many people are out there? They've got big goals, but they're scared.
Yeah.
And you are such a great example of someone to follow, because you stepped into something that most people would have thought, well, why would you do that? Or they'd be too scared to do it. And look what you've done. I mean, you really have created something that is really gaining some momentum. People are talking about it. You've got books, more books coming out, and now this man is on fire as well. What's happening with that? It's not just about women.
Well, all the way through, even when I first started, this girl, I appreciated that the world is populated not simply by women. So for me, I in the back of my mind, I always wanted to somewhere down the line offer something for men. But I thought, I'm finding my feet at the moment with this. I don't feel I know enough to then go into to that space. Yeah. So what's been brilliant is obviously Nick, my husband, has been working with me on This Girl's on Fire since it very first started. And we're coming to our 5th year now. He's grown more and more interested in this space. He's worked as a business mentor for many years. We have both gone on to train as life coaches. So he's now working as this guy is on fire. So we have this girl and this guy, and he's now he's a one-to-one coach, but he also does group coaching. Very different to the sort of community-based thing that I do. And this year this is where we're putting all our energies into this girl, this guy. And what I mean by that is building towards live events where men and women can come along. So many of the experts that, I personally got to know and love over the past few years, the advice that they give, it's not necessarily just for women, it's just for people. So there's so many takeaways, and I'm hoping you're going to come and join us with it.
Anything you do, I would love to be a part of it. Like I say, you represent transformation, reinvention. I think the greatest thing human beings will ever do is who they choose to become. And just to think that's it, I'm done, is not a way. I think that's why a lot of people are struggling in the world. They don't realize they can change, and they need people like us to show them the way. And you've now opening the door, saying, look, let me show you a world that is for you, where you can be the change, you can transform.
Oh, thank you. And just to pick up on the making the change, and the fact that I'm focusing on midlife it's for a reason. One, when I very first started, I wanted to help everybody, and then realized that's completely unsustainable. Yeah. And so you can't do that. And I remember Nick and I were having, because we run the business ourselves, we're like, if anyone listening to this or watching this has ever seen the movie Monsters, Inc., the receptionist in Monsters, Inc. is an octopus type thing that has 100 arms and is answering the phone and doing the letter writing, and that's us, because we, literally we do most of it ourselves. And we were sitting at our dining table having a meeting about, like, right, where are we going with this? There's papers and post-it notes and all this. And at one point I went, oh my God, right. What I want is I just want it to be a place where midlife women can feel good so they can do whatever the hell they want. I don't want to be some beacon of be like me because I'm really amazing. I'm not amazing. I'm just a person who is putting these things together. You don't have to be like me. Be like you. Yeah. And actually, I just breathed out and went, that's it. Actually, I'm not standing there with a six-pack going, if you do press-ups like me, I don't have a six-pack. I really don't have a six-pack. You can be as great as I am. It's actually the opposite of that. It's follow these things and then you can be as great as you are. It's got nothing to do with me.
So let me just ask you a couple more questions around this. Why do you think, of everything you've learned so far about why people get stuck and why, I don't think of the best way to phrase the question, how do you think most people kind of feel about where they are and feel about themselves?
Stuck and scared. And I get it. I really get it. Because we all feel stuck and scared. I've been married 3 times and I've been divorced twice. Now, for years, I was so embarrassed about that because for me, it was a representation of failure. I believe in love. I am a good woman who has absolutely tried her best. And yet I ended up in this situation. And I was embarrassed by that. Now, I've just mentioned it to you. No, why would I bring that up? Because I'm using the example of marriage here, but it can be in work, it can be in your health, it can be whatever. There is nothing worse than the feeling of laying next to someone and feeling lonelier than you've ever felt in your whole life. Being in a crowd can be one of the loneliest places in the world because you think, I'm surrounded by people, but actually how do I feel so alone and that no one understands what I'm feeling right now? And I'm stuck. I'm too scared to put my hand up and say, this isn't working for me. I don't know my way out of it. I get it. So I've had it in relationships and I've had it in jobs where, for example, I did a job that people were fighting down the door to get in. And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't want to be here anymore. I must be mad because everyone else is trying to get in and everyone's telling me I'm doing the best job in the world and how lucky am I? And all I can think of is, but I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something else. So I get it. I totally get how it feels, which is why when I had that moment sitting at the dining table with all the post-it notes, just that, I just want women to feel really good about themselves so they can do whatever they want. And because that's where it starts.
That's what I observed when I came to your event.
Okay.
I was in a room full of people where many of those people were on that journey, but many of them already were like, I feel good about who I am, and I feel empowered by the people around me. And I think that's amazing. So in terms of people working with you, what's the best way for people to find out about This Girl Is on Fire? Where do they go? What do they do?
Well, so we're on the App Store and we're on Google Play. So if you want to join our community, come and join us there. We have lots of different levels. Well, we have two different levels, and then we have courses that you can do on the outside. You can look us up on thisgirlsonfire.com. All our courses are there, which you don't have to be a member to do. We sell them separately, or you can come and join our merry band.
Yeah, we'll put all the links when we put this out. So one more question. You've come across the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey. The second habit first is to be proactive. The second is to begin with the end in mind. Now, I don't know which one of us will go first when we leave this earth.
Okay.
But I would like to think that if I went, that you would come to my funeral and I'd go to yours, right?
Yeah.
We won't be at each other's.
Okay.
Not in this form.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious if and when you do go, what is it, how would you like to, because my podcast is called Future Self, so everything really is about how do you see the future and what do you want to do with the time that you have, which is a great line in Lord of the Rings when Gandalf says to Frodo, it's not about the time you have, it's about what you do with the time that you have.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, how would you like to be remembered? What is it you'd like to leave behind? Apart from obviously, your books, and what is it you want to leave behind, and how would you like to be remembered?
That's such a great question. I've never been asked that before. Again, I think for me, I would like to be remembered that I made you feel good. Whether you just listened to one of my podcasts, whether you only ever came across me listening here, whether you read any of my books, whether in my almost quarter of a century of work on TV, watching me made you feel good, or if you met me in the street in Starbucks, I made you feel good. That's it. And weirdly, and this might sound a little bit maudlin, although I feel like I have so much to do, because I am halfway through, not halfway done, in my 50s, I'm actually really at peace. If it happened today, I'm good. I've done so much. Is that a weird thing?
No, not at all. I'm the same. I am totally the same. I feel I've already contributed in a way, and I'm perhaps like you in terms of I want to make people laugh. I want to make people just feel good about who they are, and I think your actions actually speak louder than you do, just in who you are. But I'm sure you're going to be around for many years, and you're going to impact and inspire a lot more people. So
thank you, Pete. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Because you've seen, I mean, you, like I say, we've known each other for so long, but you've seen my journey through all of this. So yeah. I feel like I'm getting there. If you say that, so that's great
as well. And it's tough, but there's something beyond, I think, the challenges that we have. And that's one thing that life probably already has told us. We've been through so much and we're still here. So what can we do next?
Yeah. And again, going back to habits, you'll know this. If you've been through something that's really difficult once, you can do it again because you've just proved it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I would ask everyone to do, listens to this, is to reach out to you and say what impact they've had from listening to you. I would love to know. So please, whenever you're listening, we have people listening to this all over the world, which is even in Timbuktu and Macedonia, I saw the other day. And but thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been awesome, and we'll do it again.
Yeah,
sometime.
We'll keep checking in.
Yeah, for sure.
Can I ask you, what song are you going to play at your funeral?
I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston.
Why?
A great question. I don't know. That was the song that just popped into my head. So I just think people wouldn't be expecting that. It's random. What about you?
I'm going to have, it's so bad taste, but it makes me laugh. So if and when this happens, and if I go first and you're there, I want This Girl Is on Fire as I'm being cremated.
I love that song.
But it's as the casket's going in and I'm being cremated. I want to I have it because it's funny.
Yeah.
And also it means every time, you know, now I have so many people message me going, every time I hear that song,
they think of you.
they think of me. And I just think it would put a smile on people's faces. And then every time they hear the song, it would make them laugh.
They would remember
and
you.
they'd know I'm laughing from above. And I think I'll be above.
Yeah, you definitely be up there. Thank you.